It was just an ordinary day, and I was going to the library to study. I walked down the usual path, taking in the beautiful scenery of the countryside. I loved how peaceful and serene it was, especially since I lived in the city most of my life. However, when I reached the library, I noticed that the building was surrounded by a strange mist. It was a mist I had never seen before. It was thick and white, almost like a ghostly aura. I was a little apprehensive, but I told myself that there was nothing to worry about. So I walked inside the library, my footsteps echoing through the empty halls. That was when I first heard it, a strange noise that seemed to come from the depths of the building. It was a sound that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but it was definitely not normal. I felt a chill run down my spine, and I knew that something was wrong. I decided to investigate the source of the noise. I felt a sense of fear and curiosity at the same time. I made my way through the shelves, following the sound until I reached the basement. The door was locked, but I could hear the sound more clearly. I jiggled the handle, trying to get it open, but it wouldn't budge. That was when I saw it, a figure in the mist. I couldn't quite make out what it was, but it was definitely not human. I felt a sense of dread, and I knew that I had to get out of there. I ran back up the stairs, and I burst out of the library into the sunlight. But the mist was still there, and it seemed to follow me. I ran down the road, but the mist was always there, always closing in. I could hear the sound growing louder, and I knew that I was being chased. I finally made it to my house, panting and out of breath. I locked the door behind me, and I tried to calm down. But the mist was still there, outside my window. I could see the figure in the mist, and I knew that it was still following me. Days passed, and I didn't leave my house. I was too afraid to go outside, too afraid of the mist and the figure that seemed to be following me. I felt trapped, like a prisoner in my own home. Then one day, I disappeared. No one knows what happened to me, and I was never seen or heard from again. Some say that I was taken by the figure in the mist, that I was taken to a place beyond our world. But no one knows for sure. The only thing that remained was the strange mist, and the sound that seemed to come from the depths of the earth. People say that if you listen carefully, you can still hear it echoing through the countryside. And they say that if you look closely, you can still see the figure in the mist, always searching, always seeking. The vanishing of our remains a mystery to this day, and it is a story that will continue to haunt the countryside for generations to come. I was a pizza delivery boy, working for a small pizzeria in a quiet neighborhood. It was a late-night shift, and I had only a few deliveries left. I was used to working at night and didn't mind it. However, this night would prove to be different. My last delivery was to a large mansion on the outskirts of town. I had never been there before, but the address was clear and easy to find. I arrived at the mansion and parked my car, taking a deep breath before getting out. The house was enormous, with a large driveway and several acres of land surrounding it. As I approached the door, I noticed that all the lights in the house were off. I rang the doorbell, but there was no answer. I rang it again, but still no answer. I was about to call the customer to see if they were still there when the door suddenly opened. A tall, thin man with a pale complexion appeared, dressed in a butler's uniform. He had a gaunt, almost haunted expression on his face. "The pizza, sir," I said, handing him the box. The man took the pizza, but instead of paying me, he grabbed my arm and pulled me inside. I was about to protest when I saw his eyes. They were black, with no whites. I was paralyzed with fear and couldn't move. The man led me through a maze of dark, empty halls until we finally arrived at a large room. In the center of the room was a table with a single candle in the middle. The man gestured for me to sit, and I did, my heart pounding in my chest. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. The man didn't answer. He simply stood there, staring at me with those black eyes. Suddenly, the candle flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. I could hear something moving in the shadows, and I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I screamed and bolted from the room, running as fast as I could through the dark halls. I found my way back to the front door and ran outside, where my car was waiting. I jumped into the driver's seat and sped away from the mansion, my heart racing. I never told anyone about what happened that night. I quit my job as a delivery boy and never looked back. But even now, years later, the memory of that night still haunts me. The memory of those black eyes and the cold hand on my shoulder still sends shivers down my spine. I had always loved camping. It was a chance to escape the hustle and bustle of the city and immerse myself in nature. So, when my friends invited me to go camping in the forest with them, I jumped at the opportunity. We arrived at the campsite in the late afternoon and started setting up our tents. We were in high spirits and couldn't wait to spend the night under the stars. As the sun began to set, we started a campfire and cooked our dinner over the flames. We told ghost stories and laughed until our sides ached. But as the night went on, the mood changed. The laughter died down and we became quiet, listening to the sounds of the forest. The hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional snap of a twig. I was getting ready to call it a night and climb into my tent when I heard a strange noise. It was a low growl coming from the direction of the forest. My friends didn't seem to hear it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I decided to investigate, so I grabbed a flashlight and made my way towards the noise. The growl grew louder as I got closer, and I started to feel a sense of unease. I shone my light into the darkness and saw two glowing eyes staring back at me. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I tried to back away, but my feet wouldn't move. The growling grew louder, and I felt a hot breath on my neck. I turned around and saw a massive, shaggy creature standing before me. It was taller than a man, with fur the color of midnight. I screamed and ran back to the campsite, my friends following close behind. We quickly gathered our things and fled into the car, driving away as fast as we could. We didn't stop until we were miles away from the forest. We were all shaken, but none of us could explain what we had seen. Years have passed since that night, but I still think about the creature in the woods. I've never been camping since, and I never will. I'm convinced that whatever it was not something of this world. I don't know what it was, but I do know that I never want to come face to face with it again.